Early in life, Leland Matsumura found himself on the track he was destined for. He soon realized that he loved playing trombone with the help and guidance from mentors. He began his journey that took him to the Navy as a professional musician and playing with the Seattle Symphony. Please join us on this wonderful episode. Leland Matsumura is next on OTP.
Thank you, Leland. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time, and you're a busy man.
Oh, happy to be here. Appreciate you asking.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Let's jump right in. First of all, tell us how your musical journey started.
So when I was 12, we start band in Hawaii when I was growing up at 12, and this middle school band director, he told me to buzz in a mouthpiece, and I had every intention on playing like French horn or playing um, clarinet. But what ended up happening was he gave me a trombone mouthpiece. He said, "Why don't you play trombone?" And I didn't know what a trombone was, so I just went with that, and that's how that started. I just started making music that way.
Now, the thing about that is that if you had gravitated toward the trumpet mouthpiece or something
Hmm.
else, you might have ended up on a different instrument.
Absolutely. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
gave me the trombone mouthpiece and said, "Oh, yeah, that's a nice buzz you're getting. You should play trombone." I think he needed trombone players at the time, so here we are.
I try to get my son on tuba.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
You're like, "Jerry, you should play some tuba."
yeah, played trumpet or tuba, and he was like, "No, that's not going to happen."
Had to play saxophone, huh?
Yeah, give me the reed. So, when you got the instrument in your hands, did you realize the mechanics of the instrument? The slide, because I mean, let's face it, trombone is a whole different animal. You've
Hmm.
got this slide that you've got to mess with.
Hmm.
Did that take you back, or did it motivate you, or how did you respond?
I remember looking at it when I was a kid. Looking at it, I'm like, I don't even know how they play this thing. And they're like, the band director's like, there's seven positions, so this, that, and the other thing. And for whatever reason, my brain understood it pretty well, so I never really had a problem with where's third position, where's fourth position,
That's
fifth, sixth, and
interesting.
seventh. Yeah, yeah, got lucky on that front.
That's interesting because you made me think of I had this young girl in my band, beginning band,
Hmm.
and she took to the trombone like fish to water. I didn't have
Oh.
to do a doggone thing. Embouchure, gave her the book, and she was
Hmm.
playing a B flat concert scale and just took off. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So
Sure.
you didn't have any kind of difficulties at the beginning when you started at all. You just took to it, huh?
I just took to it. I didn't mind practicing whole notes all that much.
Right.
I guess I just did what I was told in regard to that stuff. Because my band director was like, "Hey, you have to have exercise this to this done," and I was like, "Okay." So I went home and practiced it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, the slide was okay.
Yeah. Because some people freak out because there aren't any keys or vowels or things like that.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, right, right.
What did you think about? I don't want to rush through this part of the talk. What did you think about the tone of the trombone?
Um,
Did
that
it
it
dawn on
was,
you at all?
it was. I remember thinking like, this is loud and obnoxious. In the beginning, this is loud and obnoxious, and it doesn't like beginning trombone. Well, beginning anything doesn't sound super great, but beginning trombone is particularly
Yeah.
not super fun to listen to. Um, Gosh, I remember it sounding song-like. And now at this
Mhm.
point in my life, I think the trombone has a similar vocal range that to me as whenever I like to sing something, which I don't do very often, but
Mhm.
it's like the same type of vocal range.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to, as I've talked to other people on the podcast, I try to find out, if somehow did the instrument kind of relate to us as we continue to hear the pitch and the sound to our minds, or our
Mm-hmm.
own voice. I gravitated toward tenor sax,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of interesting and fascinating to see. So you're in middle school. Where do you go from there?
So this is seventh grade in Hawaii, and then my mother moved us to Virginia. So in Virginia, in Chesapeake, Virginia, they start band in sixth grade. So I'm a year behind at this point. So I'm in seventh grade band, and the other kids are doing things that I just can't do because I haven't made it there yet. So I
Right.
started taking private lessons that year to catch up.
Mm.
So I was like last chair all year, and that made me. I mean, I didn't know how bad it was until like they said there is a last. So I mean, yeah, that didn't sit too well with me, but those are the earliest memories I have of um, goal setting
Right.
musically.
Yeah.
Goal setting musically, and like the competitive nature of music
Right.
started when I was told that like this person's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, and I was last in seventh grade band in Greenbrier Middle School. But yeah, I took the lessons all year and all summer, and I ended up becoming first my eighth grade year.
Okay.
So I made up some ground pretty quickly.
Okay.
But
I want to hit two things on that. Number one, I had this conversation with another friend of mine about I had, of course, chairs in the band and so forth, challenges and blah, blah, blah. Um, we talked about the competitive side of it, and eventually I did away with the chairs.
mm-hmm,
Although, to be fair, um, I did have open chairs like once a month. And I knew for the most part what would be the results of these things. Once in a while, you'd get a last chair. You could only challenge up about 3 or 4 chairs up from where you were.
wow,
And that was open challenges. And
wow.
usually, it wasn't going to be a drastic change. But what are your thoughts about the competitive part? Obviously, that was something that helped you and motivated you.
It did. So that's like external. That's like external validation. You're getting like you
Mhm.
have this. I went from last to first, so that's like tangible, right? And
Right,
I think that you also have to be competitive with yourself because of intrinsic motivation that you have to have going forward with something like music. So
right.
if for me, I always have a sound model that I'm chasing.
Yeah,
I always have a sound model that I'm chasing. So by the time I'm in my 60s, I'm going to be chasing that same sound model.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but my mentality has slowly shifted to competing against myself versus competing against other people. And
Mm.
the only time I actually get competitive with other people is when I'm taking an audition. But when you take an audition, if you have the mentality of trying to just be better than you were the day before,
Right.
your mental health is much better
Yeah.
versus like
Yeah.
versus like, oh well, that person's gonna be here or that person's gonna be there, and it doesn't. That actually has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
Um,
point. Good point.
yeah, the competing against other people helps me, and I do like that aspect. But also, I have to remind myself every time that I'm competing against my previous self, and that
Mhm.
way it keeps me more grounded and helps me push through any type of adversity that I'm having because I'm challenging myself versus challenging another human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made me think of, in my experience of practicing, I've looked at it like, what other tool have I gained and put in myself to
Uh-huh.
become a better player. I've learned altissimos or a better tone or dexterity or whatever the case may be.
Right.
At that point now, tell me, how did you find, I mean, when I was going over our notes, I was like, okay, I keep forgetting that some of these people I'm talking to now, the internet has came into our life.
Oh yeah.
I was around before, but how did you come about? Did you have a band director or somebody steer you toward private lessons?
Um, my first band director in Virginia, his name was Tom Hune, and he suggested that I take private lessons to catch up.
Oh,
So
yes.
I remember doing that, and then I started taking lessons with a gentleman named Chris Griffa, and
Mhm.
I learned a lot about how to produce trombone sound in an easy manner. And you know what I did notice when I was 12 years old, when I was in seventh grade, he would play, and then I would play after him, but my body like knew instinctually how to make the sound that he was making.
Yeah.
And that is I've taught my own students, and I noticed immediately when a student can do that, and then you can start moving them faster, you can progress them faster. And
Yeah.
we worked out of the Remington book and the Arbin book a lot. It was a lot of fundamental practice, and um, eventually I started. Eventually, after the lessons I took, when I went to eighth grade, we switched over band directors, and Chris Griffa's father, Bob Griffa, became my middle school band director. So,
That's cool.
so yeah, that was really cool. It was a band director at first that steered me to private lessons, and then after I took the private lessons, I was like, "Oh, I'm good. I don't need any," or
Yeah.
what have you. And that was a mistake. I should have taken lessons all the way through, but um, I seem to recall it being cost prohibitive sometimes,
Right.
so I didn't take lessons again until my senior year of high school.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the lessons because I didn't have any when I
Hmm.
was growing up, and I find it, of course, I promoted it as a band director. Um, and when you talked about you were obviously watching your private instructor. You were
Hmm.
looking at his embouchure or
Hmm.
the way he was playing. You're taking, and I find a lot the instrument that a lot of people do that with is the percussion, is the drum set.
Hmm.
They're watching the maneuver of the hand, right, left, or whatever, getting the pattern down. And we've done that and of course you see that on YouTube now and everything else.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. So you get in high school. Tell us a bit about that.
So I went to high school at Oscar Smith High School in Chesapeake, Virginia, and my band director's name was James Wilson. I
Mm.
think he is also a Grambling grad, just like you.
Oh,
Yeah, so he
okay.
went to Grambling, but I forgot what year he graduated. Had to have been in the 80s sometime. But
Yeah.
now he's a middle school band director in Houston now.
Oh,
But
really?
oh yeah. And um yeah, so I get to high school, and I this is where I start discovering things like different trombone players and stuff like that. So I
Right.
gravitated to um more classical trombonists like Joe
Mm.
Alessi and Christian Lindbergh, actually. So Christian Lindbergh is is like one of the most recorded, if not the most recorded trombone soloist. He's recorded all the rep, and I
Mm.
remember wearing out his CDs. Like it was just wonderful stuff, and I still refer back to his recordings even
Mhm.
now. Um, yeah.
What what made you go toward classical?
No particular reason. I think my private teacher in seventh grade, he had a very beautiful like singing sound,
Mm.
but it was like kind of, I don't want to say robust. It wasn't robust. It was like kind of, it was bigger,
Mm.
and we didn't work on jazz too much.
Mm.
This is all classical training
Yes.
fundamentally. So we
Right.
didn't work on too much jazz at all. And
Hmm.
as a matter of fact, like I did jazz band throughout high school and middle school, but I mean, I probably wasn't playing the style as well as I probably should have. But I got really distracted by um orchestra music and like really big sounds in the back of a concert hall.
Yeah.
That's what I gravitated to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Because typically you find people that classical, jazz, rock, or whatever, and all of a sudden they focus their playing into that genre of music. And
Mhm.
ultimately, sometimes, of course, it ends up being their livelihood if they decide to go that direction. Now,
Mhm.
at one point in high school, did you feel like this is something I wanted to do for a living?
I I remember looking for other avenues to play. So this seems so silly looking back on it, but I remember being a junior in high school and I got like third in my district or something like that. There were like 50 people that auditioned and I got third.
Mm,
And then I thought to myself that, oh, I might be okay at this. Maybe I can do this for a living. So this is at 16 years old, where I seem to remember like maybe I can do this for a living at 16.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then after district band, it became insatiable where I was looking for different avenues to like play and stuff like that. So I discovered like um youth orchestra, and I played in this youth orchestra in Norfolk called Bay Youth Symphony Orchestras. I think it's still called, maybe
hmm,
Bay Youth Orchestras of Virginia, something like that. But I remember my first rehearsal, they had me sit in and I played Shostakovich Festive Overture. Now, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this about trombone music, but even in the second trombone part, Shostakovich is it's like Shostakovich and Prokofiev and a lot of these Russian composers, they'll put the second trombone in alto clef. So
oh,
I was familiar with tenor clef at this point just by accident, looking at music and stuff like that, just
yeah,
getting my feet wet with like orchestral music and stuff like that, like orchestral excerpts and things like Tuba Mirum, that was written in like that was in
right,
tenor clef and stuff like that. Bolero, tenor
yeah, yeah,
clef.
right,
But the first time I encountered alto clef, I panicked because I was like, I don't know how to read this.
yeah,
So I'm sitting next to this senior in high school, and he sounds fantastic. And this is the first time where I'm meeting somebody with he had a very mature sound
mm,
for his age. And I don't think he ended up becoming a professional musician. And I've since forgotten his name, but I remember he was like, okay, so this line right here is middle C.
oh
So
yeah,
you're going to make sure that you know where everything is from there. And I was like,
right,
okay. So I went home, took the music home, and I had to write all the notes above so I can like get my bearings on that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
man, I remember that
that's cool.
Festive Overture was my first
Hmm.
um orchestral piece that I've ever played. And then after that we got into some Wagner. Wagner was in tenor clef.
Right, right.
Yeah. But
That's good stuff, man, to really develop your whole music scheme. That's good learning.
yeah, and they just threw me in the fire. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna read Festive Overture. That's okay, right? Okay, sure, sounds good." And I'm thinking it's in bass clef. It's
Right.
not in bass clef at all, not even close. Yeah. But
Right.
man, that was tough. But thank goodness though, because then I got really, because YouTube was just starting to come out, and I
Mm.
got really into listening to all kinds of different pieces. And I remember finding this old school Russian recording of Festive Overture. I remember how loud the trombonists were playing. It was like loud and aggressive. And I was like, oh yeah, that's how you should play it. So I started like shifting my gaze to trying to sound like that. And then
Yeah.
after that, I was introduced to Brahms when I was a senior in high school, and then it became more of a blended sound that we were going for. And it was in high school where I started to get hit with the differences of different composers.
Right. Right.
So my senior year of high school, I joined this magnet school called Governor School of the Arts. So I would go to my regular high school for like, I don't know, until like 12:30 in the afternoon, and then I would
Uh,
get over to Norfolk and go play in the Governor School of the Arts my senior year. So they had a full orchestra,
yeah.
big
Yeah.
band, stuff like that.
I want to back up for a minute because I find it fascinating that you're a kid. You're still a
Oh,
kid in that
mhm.
situation. And being a kid, you have, and especially in your generation, you have all these external things, video games, girls,
Mhm.
cars, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But you still sunk your teeth in to the music and your focus on, getting better. That's very mature for that age, don't you think?
I think so. When we get to college, I'll tell you all kinds of things that I didn't like. I'll tell you exactly what I didn't do in college, and that was like
It
I
caught up
didn't.
to you.
It did, but in high school, trombone playing, it was. I always, whenever I tell stories like this, I always thought to myself that trombone was the only thing I could do well. So I
Yes,
was insatiable. Like I just wanted to play trombone.
right,
All I
right.
wanted to play trombone.
See, and that was the reason why I became a middle school teacher,
Hmm.
because I knew that in middle school, give or take, for not everyone, but a lot of us, you started to find out what you could be good at.
Hmm.
And then at high school, you well, like I can get a touchdown. I can put a
Hmm.
ball in a hoop. I can write well. I can take pictures. And you start to cultivate that a little bit better. Um, so now you're like in high school, this is something I'm doing really well. You started getting applause. People liked what you were doing. What was
Yeah.
happening in your family at the time? Do you have sisters and brothers?
I have at this time in my life, I have three younger brothers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a fifth. I have a fourth younger brother, but he wasn't born until 2009.
Okay. They
So,
came to your concerts and then supported you and all that.
so I played in band obviously. My brother Bronson, he played in band as well. Spencer
Okay.
also played in band. Yep. I went through the whole time, Bronson went through the whole time. Spencer quit after sophomore year maybe
Uh-huh.
of high
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, all three of us were doing it at some point.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. And your mom and dad, they're very supportive of you and paying for private lessons and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mom and my stepfather did what they could with the private
Right.
lessons. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like I think
Yeah.
mom would have paid for them if I had
Right.
asked or was a little bit more pushy with
Yeah.
them. But
Right.
I mean, I don't know. After I took
Yeah.
them in seventh grade, I was like, no, I'm good to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the best.
Don't waste your money.
Don't waste your money. This is the best it's gonna be.
Yeah. So you're coming out of high school, and at that point, did you say you're feeling like you want to do music, or were you focused on being a music educator?
I never thought that I wanted to be a band director. I never wanted to get up and do the stick. I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't discover I didn't really like get into teaching until I was older.
Okay.
So when I'm in school, all I wanted to do was play in I want to play in an orchestra, play in an orchestra, play in an orchestra. It's all I wanted to
Right.
do when I was in high school. And then when I got to college, I went to James Madison University in Virginia,
Mhm.
and that's still all I wanted to do. So I started off as a music performance major,
Right.
and I wasn't really super informed about what that was going to entail, but that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
I'm in undergrad, and I switched my major from performance to industry, and then back to performance. So
Ah.
I didn't know what was happening.
Well,
College was weird for me.
you said industry.
Yeah, we had a degree called music industry.
What was that like?
So the brief time that I did do it was about a year. It was like you could get into different. You can get into marketing. You can get into artist management. You can get into
Oh, it
stuff like
was
that.
global kind of thing.
Oh yeah, entrepreneurship and stuff like that, man.
Interesting. And so you go back to performance.
Yeah, because I always had this weird, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to, well, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, or I don't know if I'm cut out for that. And then finally I was just like, no, I need to just do this and just settle on it, practice my instrument, that kind of thing.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. But that's typical of that age, 18,
Yeah.
19, and heck, you could be 65 and still don't know what the heck you want to do. It's kind of bad when it's that far done.
Right. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
so you graduate with a performance degree,
Yep. I took 5 years, took a victory lap,
right? Right.
took a fifth year, and I finished with a trombone performance degree. Then I took a year off, and then I went to graduate school.
What kind of ensembles were you playing in when you were in undergrad?
When I was in undergrad, the I played in bands. So I started in the concert band my freshman year, and then the next semester, the spring semester, I was in the top band, and after that, I was in the orchestra, and then the top band again, and then I got bumped down to the second band, and that made me upset. So I practiced harder for the next audition, and um, then I kind of just remained
Uh,
in the top ensembles after that. But I did a lot of orchestra. I did opera orchestra once. That was cool. We did a production of Carmen.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and actually, I almost forgot about that. That was one of the first times where I was like, "Oh, that might be a cool avenue to try to get into an opera orchestra and do that."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's that, and orchestra. I got to play a lot of rep. Band, I got to play a lot of rep, like a lot of Granger and
Right.
Stephen
Right.
Bryant. Played some Schwantner, like stuff like that. Your standard your
Hmm.
standard wind band literature
And
got to
there's
play. Yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah,
Did you
marches.
play outside of school at all, gigs and clubs or anything?
Yeah, it was like I gigged a lot with like high school musicals and
Mm,
um sometimes my friends and I would put on like trombone quartet recitals for fun outside or whatever.
right. Right.
Um Quintet wise, I had one quintet that I was in, but we never did anything like serious.
Uh,
Excuse me.
mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I did some gigs, weddings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The typical kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
you get in grad school, and what are you going to do there?
I'm in graduate school at Western Michigan University. I study with Steve Wolfenbarger.
Hmm.
And at this point, I'm starting to learn like there's certain things about my playing that need to improve. So in undergrad, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't have like too strong of a focused daily routine that I was doing every day. I wasn't
Hmm.
focused enough on my own personal individual practice. And I have
Yeah.
friends like that I went to school with that would say this what I just said, Leland never practiced that much.
Yeah.
Or Leland didn't Leland didn't focus a whole lot. And
Right.
it
Right.
wasn't focused. Not until my fifth year I was like not until my fourth or my fifth year I got really focused and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
graduate school was I was really locked in because I had a lot of friends and colleagues that I was around that were all hungry for. At this point, you're in graduate school. You're hungry for a job.
Right. Right.
You're hungry to play. You're hungry to get an assistantship at a DMA program, stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, when I get to graduate school, I start learning. I start expanding my understanding of how to do things musically, phrasing wise, rubato, and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
Because sometimes, as you might imagine, you have like you're playing a solo, and people don't know how to
Hmm.
get to the destination in a logical manner. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm being musical, and then it's
Right.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
stop, versus like, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
In your
Yeah.
head, subdivision wise, you want to make sure the
Right.
audience can actually like keep up with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's in
Yeah.
graduate school that I started learning stuff like that, or to change the color of my sound
Right.
to match the style. I
Right.
was playing a lot more French music,
Right.
but I distinctly remember being told from several of my teachers that like I was pushing the sound too much. It was very like if you take like your sound and you're pressing it up against the wall and you're doing that, like
Right.
it was very um I was engaging my diaphragm in a way that I didn't have to.
Right.
So I learned a lot about that and changed a lot about my playing. So eventually, by the time I get to my master's recital, I thought that went pretty well. Learned some alto trombone for the master's recital, and that's
Okay.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I learned a lot about timbre and color differences when I was
Right.
in graduate school and how to carry myself professionally. Because at this point, I'm still kind of a
Yeah.
sort of a hothead and uh, might have been disrespectful to some of my colleagues, but I mean,
Right.
uh, uh, the people that I remember being disrespectful to in undergrad and like graduate school,
Right.
I definitely reached out to them in previous years and apologized to them because I was like, man, I'm just a child
Right.
thinking that these are the right things to do, and it's like not the right things to do.
From
It's
what I'm, go ahead, finish your thought.
it's like bullying at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing from you, though, you took inventory of yourself as you were getting, and by the way, as you were talking about your fourth and fifth year undergrad, that's about where my practicing kicked in. And
Mm-hmm.
God knows if I didn't wake up in my third, fourth year, I probably don't know where I would have been, by the grace of God. So you really took inventory of yourself, musically and personally, as you were growing in. The maturity kicks in, and you're starting to realize where you are. So that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I think I had really good friends. Excuse me.
Mm.
I think I had some friends around me that were very we had a studio culture of kind of like a little bit more hard nosed and hold you accountable type.
Mm.
And that's from previous generations of older kids in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So people noticed when I didn't practice.
Yeah.
People, I mean, either it didn't sound all that great or my ego was getting out of control. So it was like, oh man, but I know you don't practice like that. You're not working very hard. You're just resting on your laurels with all this quote unquote talent that you have.
Right.
And what it really ended up being was I had done a lot of practicing in high school, enough to give me a very strong baseline where the floor, if this is the floor of my playing, the absolute worst of it is not so bad,
Right.
but you're not really improving all that much.
Right. It's not where you needed to be when you elevate the music.
Absolutely not. I mean, I've had instances that I can recall back to. My teacher, Andy Langford, Dr. Andy Langford in undergrad, I remember he told me one time, I was a freshman, I was a performance major, and I was in the bottom band. And he said, Leland, Dr. Langford was always such a nice guy. He always knew exactly what to say to me at the right time.
Yes.
So this is when I was 18 years old. He goes, Leland, I don't know that performance majors are in the concert band. They're either in the orchestra or the wind symphony. And there was nothing more than that. He didn't press me anymore, but it was just is what it is.
Right.
So I did not want to be that guy anymore. So I was like, okay, well, that's the gauntlet. It was thrown. Go ahead and practice, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I did practice, but it was still unfocused until I got older. Like even in graduate school, it was a lot more focused, obviously.
Right.
I also had an instance in. God, I had. Hope they don't mind me saying this if they ever listen to this, but man, I had a final. Oh no, it was a prelim for the concerto competition at JMU, and I remember I was a fifth year senior, and I just played the Davi concertino, and it didn't go as well as I would have liked it to.
Right.
I remember Mr. Kevin Stees, the tuba professor, and I had been playing in his British style brass band for like 3 years up to this point.
Right.
Him and like Dr. Langford, they called me into Mr. Stees' office, and he was like, I don't know what to tell you, but that performance wasn't that good. We didn't vote for you. Is like him and Dr. Langford didn't vote for me to go on to the next round. It was the other brass faculty that got me to the next round.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if they remember this, but these are formative memories for me, right? They, I remember them saying, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was hot because I felt back in the day, you feel so disrespected when you're like 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I look back on that and I laugh and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they knew exactly what they were doing. It was so good. It was perfect for me.
Right.
And I practiced so hard for the final. The finals performance went well. I did not get chosen, but that's okay. I mean, that it's like the type of kick in the behind that you need
to
keep on going.
Right.
And Yeah, it's always it was always a professor or another mentor that gave me a little slice of humble pie every single time.
You're absolutely right. Real quick, for me, it was, I don't know, my sophomore somewhere in the, I stopped practicing. I was just, like you said, just doing the bottom end of it all. And
Right.
it was girls.
Oh,
Girls got in the way. And so
as they
my,
do sometimes.
yeah, and my professor, Mr. Seals, God bless him, he said, "Don't come back." He was my private teacher, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Don't come back until you get serious." And I was like,
Ooh, ooh,
what?
I like that. Yeah.
What are you talking? He said, "Yeah, don't come back. You waste." This was a quote. He said, "You're wasting your time, your money, and my time. So don't come back." And man, that woke me up. I mean, it was like a slap in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, like you said, he wasn't rude or anything, but
No, it was
uh,
just matter of fact.
yeah, part of the
Yeah.
adult world.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're getting out of grad school and you're looking for a job. How are you going to make a living?
So I had another kick in the behind on the way out to graduate school. I did. Like I texted. I remember texting Dr. Steve Wolfenbarger, and I was like, "Doc, you think I can win a job?"
Hmm.
And he said, "With enough persistence and dedication, you can win another. You can win a job." And he said, "You don't really have the killer instinct to practice." So the first part was fine. I was like, "Okay, sure, right? That's good advice." Then the second part, I was like, "Oh, had to just slide that in there real quick." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I
Yeah,
took that. These are times you take this on the chin, and then you're
absolutely.
you're like, either I'm gonna quit trombone or I'm gonna
Right.
practice, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
My first job out of graduate school was Home Depot. I was working like 50
Were,
hours at Home
were
Depot.
they hiring trombone players at Home Depot?
It was I was a cashier. I was a cashier, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
was doing that, and I remember, a conversation I had with my girlfriend, but now my wife, Sarah.
Yeah.
Her and I were talking about our futures, and I wanted to go get a DMA. Um, and
Okay.
she ended up saying, "Well, I'm not going to leave my job to go with you to go get a doctorate randomly.
Right.
Do you have a plan? Do you have this? Do you have that?" I was like, "Okay, well," and then we got into a little heated discussion about
Yeah.
what I wanted to do for a living, and then I finally like got fed up and I said, "I want to play for a living. That's what I want to do."
Right. Right.
And she said, "Okay, that's all you had to say." And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So this is like at 26 years old, I didn't know how to, like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
communicate
Yeah.
very well, but
Right.
um I I
You want to
started
be a
working at Home
musician.
Depot. Oh yeah, I started working at Home Depot, and then started thinking
Hmm.
about what kind of auditions I was going to take. So by this point in my life, I had only taken like one audition, one professional audition, one or two auditions,
Yeah.
and I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I started taking lessons from a gentleman by the name of Garth Simmons. He plays principal trombone in the Toledo Symphony, and
Okay.
I would take lessons with him off and on for a little while. And
Mm.
after, like, during the same time, I started seeing Rick Stout in the Cleveland Orchestra, and same thing, off and on. And it was during this time where I started like um, practicing, and like my practice habits like really into high gear, where I was like really working on my fundamentals and hitting weaknesses of mine. So at this point, and I
Right.
still believe them to be my weaknesses, that it's like multiple tonguing, the low trigger register in the tenor trombone, and
Hmm.
um yeah, and I think like the transfer between like the low register to the high register
Okay.
in one breath, and doing that efficiently. So it's like embouchure
Mm.
efficiency. So like
Right.
those are the three things where I'm constantly working on them. And
Right.
at this point, um I'm practicing everything that I can, listening to recordings, recording myself like a madman to see, like, does this sound like how I want it to go? Does this sound like the recordings? Does this sound
Right.
like the composer? Does this sound like X professional trombone player?
Yes.
And it's like stuff like that. So I remember one time Rick Stout told me that we were playing this excerpt called La Gazzaladra from it's a Rossini overture, and he said that like my articulations were champagne bubbly. They weren't there wasn't enough ping on each of the notes, but it wasn't like sparkling. And for
Right.
some reason, after he said that, I was like, oh, I see what you're saying. And then I was like, well, how do you get that? And he said, I think you're doing too much with your slide arm. So it was like too much elbow.
Right.
And
Okay.
he really got me thinking about like using the fingers more.
More. Oh, okay. Yeah.
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 So I remember that changing my life. So after that, it started like that. Those kind of things started like compounding on themselves. And
Right.
I was taking a lot of auditions and having mixed results.
Right.
And this was a crazy time of my life.
Yeah.
But I was after Home Depot. I would substitute teach, so
Right.
that was a hard job.
Yeah.
Substitute teaching was really hard. I probably wouldn't do it again if I needed to. If I needed to. I probably like, if I quit from if I
Home Depot.
yeah, I'd probably do Home Depot over the substitute teaching. That was crazy. Yeah, but at this point I was subbing with a bunch of orchestras actually. So
Okay.
I was paying my dues, meeting people, and trying. And I learned some weird things about like how you're supposed to present yourself to the person that you're trying to get on their sub list or whatever. And it's like I learned that on my own. So I have a lot of like. Sometimes it was like, hey, so how can I play with such and such? And it's that's kind of a rude way to say it. And I learned a specific way how to say it so it's like disarming, and I'm not doing it because like I'm trying to, whenever I take a lesson with somebody, I'm trying to learn something, not sub with the orchestra. Even though that would be nice, but goal number one is always to just get better instead of working with X orchestra.
Yeah, but you have to network.
Sure.
You have to play and get into that a little bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Interesting. So now where are you? Where are you living at this time?
I'm living with Sarah in Sandusky, Ohio, because she was teaching at K through 6 elementary school in Sandusky. So yeah, I was living there with her, and then we got married in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was freelancing. Like home base for me was like Sandusky, Ohio. So I would drive out to Cleveland and teach my students. Or I would drive whenever I got called to play with Toledo. I would drive from Sandusky to Toledo. Sometimes I would go from Cleveland to Toledo. I remember doing gigs with other orchestras, like in Fort Wayne. I would play with the Fort Wayne Philharmonic every once in a while, and I would substitute teach, and then drive 2.5 hours, go do that gig. Sometimes stay out there, sometimes come home.
Yeah.
So those were times that I don't necessarily remember the physical toll that they took, but
yeah. It's a blur. You're living life.
I was living life. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. But that's what made you the musician you are now. You were shedding and chiseling away, sculpturing, I should say, sculpturing more of what you are today.
You're building the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how does the Navy fall into all of this?
So the Navy, it was just another audition. They announced it as one of those national auditions that you could take for the Navy fleet bands, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll take the audition. And I'm giving the audition like my standard like audition prep, like it's like I'm half speeding things for weeks and doing this, that, and the other thing. And it ended up working out. Played really well in the prelim. Then I went to the final, played pretty well in the final. And long story short, they hired a few of us, and it's good to go. So here we are. I didn't join the Navy until 2019. And that's when I started boot camp. It was like August of 2019. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So did you think about, bottom line is, and we all know this, first of all, you're signing your life away. for so many years. I mean, and first of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, happy to
Coming from
serve.
coming from the heart. Uh, so, did you talk to your wife about this? How did she take it? And
Well, so
to pry too
this
much.
right? No, well, it's okay. I'll tell you exactly what happened. So the the progression of my goal setting and stuff like that, because I believe that you need to set goals in order to do this, that, and the other thing. So when I first started taking auditions, I had to have been I was 26 at the time, 26. I told Sarah that give me 5 years. Now this is an arbitrary number. I was like 5 years. If I don't have a job where I am making full-time money to play my instrument by 31 years old, I'll quit and then I'll go into another career. And I thankfully did it in 3 years, so that's good. But before that, the goal was to advance out of the prelim. After that, the goal was to win a regional orchestra job, which I ended up doing with the Battle Creek Symphony. I played principal trombone there for like what 3 seasons.
Oh,
Yeah, 3 seasons. And then after that, the goal was win a full time job playing orchestra, military band, doesn't matter. Just go ahead and get it done. So I got it done, and then I went to boot camp at 29 years old.
wow.
So yeah, I was 29 when I was in the Navy.
Kind of late. You
Oh yeah.
kind of an old man, dude.
Oh, I was. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
getting older.
Yeah. So, well, before we move on, we've got a clip here that we're going to play of you. Can you set this up a little bit for us? Of the musical clip that we're going to play?
Can I set it up?
Yeah. Can you set that up for us? The musical sound. Tell us what it's about. What are we going to listen to?
Oh, I see. We're getting ready to listen to part of a Bordoni etude that's been edited by Johannes Rochu, who used to play in the Boston Symphony back in the day, way back in the day. But these etudes are the bread and butter of every trombone player's like how we learn how to play melodically. So this recording is a bit of number 16, and it's one of the more well-known ones in the trombone community.
Mhm.
And I recorded it for another military band audition to get past the tape round, which it was successful, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the whole time I'm playing, I was thinking, well, at first you start thinking about things like, oh, I need to make sure that I execute this, and it's very
Yeah.
technical. But then after that, it's like, well, just blow. Eventually, got to blow through the phrase and make the phrase, sing a little bit, get your vibrato on, and then we'll see how it sounds at the end of the recording.
Yeah.
So,
Meet you at the bottom right.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a listen. Tell the audience, I mean, what does it take to work that up?
Oh boy. So whenever I get a piece of music like that, I always start with the basic things, the key, time signature, tempo, stuff like that. Um, and then I look at the whole piece and see where something could be particularly difficult for me. But then after that, I go phrase by phrase and I sing it. I sing it first, then I play it. sing it, play it, sing it, play it. And if the and in this whole process I'm recording it, right? So if I don't match the playing to what I sang, then I'll go back and I'll try to make it sing. Because you're going to sing it a certain way and you're going to want to play it a certain way. So so that one, number 16, I couldn't tell you how many times I played that one. Or I've played that one or sang that one, but that's an etude where you be da da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dee dee da, like stuff like that. You start doing stuff like that, and if it didn't sound like that, I go back and I fix it.
Right.
Or I go back to make it more like my voice, because actually the etude book is called vocalises. So like you're supposed to have a cantabile sound. It's not supposed to be like bop 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 bee bop 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 bop. Like it's not supposed to, but and I know that you can do this with every genre. Like I mean,
sure. Jazz, that's all what it's about, is singing with them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm gonna embarrass myself, but there was an excerpt on this audition that I took. It was from Thad Jones' Tiptoe, and I guess I could have played it like do ba do dow ba ba do do da. I could have played it like that, but I didn't. I tried to sing it first in a way that made sense. Do ba do dow boo ba do va wee ba da. Right. And if you can sing it, yes, you can play. You just gotta practice everything that you can on the trombone or on the instrument to make sure that you're good to go. Because fundamentally, like there are certain things that you have to be able to execute.
Right.
So yeah.
Interesting. We used to say that all the time, even now as I work with older people, let's sing it. Let's sing the lick first, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
But and drummers are always doing that. They're always picking up that rudiment and that lick up that way. So now you get in the Navy. Where was your first station?
So I went to boot camp at Recruit Training Command. So after that, I went to A school down in Little Creek, Virginia. And now I am here about getting ready to transfer. I'm at Navy Band Northwest.
Okay.
So yeah, this is my first duty station. I've been in almost 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
How
do you like it?
The checks keep coming in on the 1st and the 15th. No, seriously though. Yeah, right. So what I do like about the job is, and I don't know if many people share this same opinion, but we get a lot of soft skills from doing this particular job, because a lot of the times when I'm not playing, I'm working in a position that allows the band to function.
Okay.
So like in the operations department, we're booking gigs, we're creating the engagement order to go ahead and pick the personnel and all of that stuff, sending out letters saying we have accepted, rejected the gig, whatever, what have you. But those are what's called collateral duties, and the collateral duties are what allows us to function and continue what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, you got to do the heavy lifting to do what you like to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And is that kind of a drag?
It depends on the shop. Sometimes I have worked in a variety of different shops now at this point, and I think that the times that I've had the most fulfillment and fun from the shop was when I was in charge of it.
Oh, yeah.
So supervising people, helping people, and helping the command get from A to B, like those are fun for me. The times that I had a rough time was when it was a lot of grunt work.
Yeah. Dig the ditch.
Yeah, right. But I'm this is all cliche, and everyone's gonna say, well, there's grunt work in every job. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm trying to channel that energy more and more so I don't have a negatively emotional response.
Right.
Something that I'm getting paid for, which is a challenge sometimes for me. So and I imagine it's a challenge for a lot of my other colleagues too. But and sometimes, and I learned this from this seems like obvious now that I'm thinking about it, but I had a colleague one time tell me that when he was a E4, when he was a third musician, third class, he first thing he did was play his tuba before he touched his collateral duties.
Oh yeah.
So if I can get into the building early and play my trombone,
Right.
knock out a fundamental session, I feel
Right.
so much better about doing the computer work
Right. Right.
because I already knocked out one session. I'm already ahead of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way
Tomorrow
of looking at it.
right, like tomorrow's a perfect example because I'll go ahead and we have an all hands like meeting, so we'll do that. And but before that, I'm thinking about popping in the building at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Go ahead and knock out my fundamental routine,
Yeah.
and then I get in my uniform, do my job,
Right.
and then I have time to do other stuff later. Like if I can go ahead and play like some of a Bach cello suite later, that'd be cool. Or like learn some new solo rep that I've been working on, what
Right.
have you. But then I can knock out the paperwork, and knocking out the paperwork feels great knowing that I have trombone either already finished,
Right.
and then I have trombone later. So like that is helpful.
Yeah. You talked so much during this episode about, your, without actually saying it, but your relationship with your trombone. I've heard nothing but how you met it, how you fell in love with it, and how you try to do justice by it. And that we all are trying to do that with our instruments, become the best that we can be. Talk to people about that relationship you have with your instrument. I mean, it's serious. It's something that means a lot in your life.
Absolutely. I talk about this all the time, but it's like the trombone in particular is right now it's my hobby, my profession, my passion, it's so how do you keep up with all of it? Because like you're supposed to put on a different hat every single time you play the trombone. If it's no secret to my colleagues, I have certain marches that I don't like to play. I think many of us have pieces we don't like to play.
Right.
And but that is one of those situations where trombone is my job at that point, or the collateral duties, trombone is my job. That it's
a tool.
Yeah, right. These things go hand in hand. If I don't do this job, my job to play the horn doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like if I channel more of that energy, it helps me. But I've definitely had like bad seasons of negativity with my horn.
Yeah.
The pandemic hit, and I was playing a lot of video games, like way too much. And so far throughout this podcast episode, it's probably sounding like, oh man, he's like running for president. I got like the answers are so crafted and stuff like that. But I'll tell you right now, I was playing way too many hours of Call of Duty, and it was insane. And a couple of my friends know what I'm talking about because they were with me.
Yeah.
So trombone fell to the wayside, and I had a decline. So before I started studying with my current mentor, Koichiro Yamamoto, in the Seattle Symphony.
Okay.
Before I started studying with him, I was disoriented. Was probably having chop problems. I was doing too much physically here.
Right.
And I think over the past 2 years and change, I think Ko's saved my playing.
Yeah.
And my mentality towards the instrument has turned from I have to be the best ever, or the best this, the best that, whatever, or it has to sound like this. I am letting go of the sound expectations of the you're just, when we play our instruments, where we play, it's to play. It's not to like win a war, which is like how militaristic some of us can do, right? We can actually be like that. So a lot of us can do stuff like that, but man, it got really toxic for a couple of years,
where
like I wanted to quit, and it's not that I hated trombone, it's not that I hated my job, it's that I had assigned so much self-worth to me sounding good, and that's like, I mean, how hard is that, right? To go ahead and continue
Right.
through your mental space and say, I'm worthy of love because I'm a human being. It's like
Right.
intrinsic worth
Yeah.
versus
Yeah. Yeah.
like people only think I'm worth anything if I play well. And
Yeah.
that's just, I mean,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
so many words, right? Like that's
Right.
not directly what I was thinking, but like if the
Right.
self-worth equals sounding good, then I'm gonna lose every
Right.
time because like there are times where it's not gonna sound so great.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember this recital I was having. I shared this recital with my friend in at a university. And I remember texting my wife like, "Oh my god, I'm so nervous." And I I'm so nervous and I don't even know why I'm here and this, that, and the other thing. It was very negative, very toxic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is years later I realized like you're who you're playing for at that point. You playing for
Mhm.
yourself, you playing for the
Right.
audience, are you playing for what are you playing for? Glory?
Yeah.
If you're playing for glory, then of course it's going to be stressful,
Yeah.
right? But like
Right.
I mean, I think at that time I was playing for I thought my reputation was on the line every single time I picked up the horn.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it was creating this really negative
Yeah. Yeah.
atmosphere for me. But
Yeah.
over the past year or so, year and a half, 2 years, it's gotten so much better.
Right.
And yeah, and then this is in the midst of like personal tragedies that I've had in my life, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like doubling down on, life is too
Yeah.
short to take this
Right.
so
Right.
so seriously. And
Right. Right.
I have my family, I have this, I have that. And
Right.
the thing that I do notice about myself nowadays is that that's why I try to knock out all my practicing and work at the building, because if I knock out all the work and practicing at the building, I can come home and enjoy my time. Because especially if I decide that I'm going to not practice in the evening, or to practice in the evening, if that's my first practice session of the day, I'm stressed out. And I learned that about myself like last year. So if I can get like one or two sessions knocked out at work, then the
Right.
last practice session that I usually save at the end of the night, I can
Right.
take it or leave it.
Right.
So that's always nice to
Right.
do. It's like a backup plan just in case, but I always try to do one session at the building. So if I have extra work to do, I can just do the extra work at home.
Right.
But I'm trying to
Right.
spend time with my family at that point, so I'm not trying to practice.
Right. So,
So,
boy, let's unpack several things there, because man, you hit it. Number one thing we got to make sure we say is that you added another hat to your repertoire, and that is you and your wife as parents.
absolutely.
And that's the number one thing, man. And when it
Mhm.
changes the whole uh, spectrum of your playing.
Right.
And so now I can see when you were talking about you practicing at your work. You have a little one at home,
Uh-huh.
asleep. All you've got to balance all of that out, and being a husband, being a father, and all of that comes to play. Uh,
Mhm.
and I feel you on the dropping out of love. That's what happened with me and my horn.
Mhm.
How many times have I wanted to throw that horn against the wall? I was
Oh
mad.
yeah.
Back first starting in college, and then as you starting to teach, and you feel your skills are dropped because you're teaching hot cross buns in middle school and stuff, and
Oh,
then
sure. Yeah.
and then I say, okay, blanket. I'm out. I'm just going to do this. So, yeah, that relationship that you have with this inanimate object
Mhm.
goes up and down all your life.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's not Sarah always says it's not linear, right? It's like this, right? Peaks and valleys.
Does she play? Is she your wife?
Sarah actually she plays clarinet. She has a
Okay.
master's in clarinet performance.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
All right. All right.
absolutely. Yeah, she
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah. There you go. Well, before we wrap this up, on that same note of, pardon the pun, of loving the instrument.
You're clearly a dad, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've realized, and you talked about life is too short, and you get into some of your senior years, the love of music. Talk to our audience about, you know, why music is so important. Why should we keep it in our life, whether we listen, dance, play, tap a finger. Why do we as human beings gravitate to this thing that we call music?
Whoa, that's deep.
I'm glad you're drinking some scotch in that cup.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's scotch and soda.
Yeah.
No, it's coffee. Everyone. Gosh, music. So I can tell you why music is important for me. So
Sure.
music is important for me because, like I said before, it's like my hobby and my profession and my passion, right?
Right,
When I'm having a terrible day,
right,
I pick the horn up, not looking to make my day better necessarily, but like to express myself
right,
in a way that I might not be able to say. And I know that sounds super cliche, right? But it's like, I distinctly remember like several times over the past like couple of years where, wow, that was a really bad day, or wow, that interaction was terrible, that experience was really tragic,
right,
and I sit by myself and play a couple of like etudes
right.
and just have a good time, make some music.
Yep.
I think that music is how we communicate, communicate our feelings a lot of times. Like imagine how many times like people are giving you like, this is how I feel, and they give you a song, they send you a song.
Yeah.
Or like you can hear some of the most beautiful music ever written. It is like either super happy or super sad. Like actually, Barber's Adagio for strings, like
Mm.
I always get like a very sad, depressing kind of vibe from it, but it's so hauntingly beautiful
Right,
that I can't like not listen to it.
right, right. Yeah,
Or like the Adagietto from Mahler 5. The
yeah.
Adagietto from Mahler 5 was written for Mahler's daughter? I can't remember. But it was written for a family member, right? So um that was how he was communicating, by
Right.
composing this beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because like everyone in this world probably has something that they just love to listen to.
Yeah.
Like everyone does.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you play video games and the video game track is what you like to listen to, and that's the type
Right.
of music you like to listen to.
Right.
And it's accessible to everybody. Like the music is accessible to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm ranting right now, but I think that
Yeah.
I don't
you're
know. I
good.
think music is important for like expressing your emotions. I mean,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, especially when you have a hard time expressing them, like music might be the way to do it.
That's right on because I feel like as humans, our bodies we take in and we put out.
Mm-hmm.
Got to sneeze, we breathe in, we breathe out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we if you don't eat something that agrees with your stomach,
Right.
you know, all of this, and part of that, our body are the emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and the emotions, that's nothing but the music, you know, and we listen to it. Like you said, I'll pick up my sax. I did it today, and I'll play something I know, or you know, and if I'm feeling bad or happy or whatever, the endorphins and all of that. And it's important as we get older, as in your senior years, you know, because man, you start doing all this reminiscing and everything else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have I can't close this episode off about your baby, and you think what's your baby's name again? I'm sorry.
My son?
Yeah, your son,
Yeah, Tristan.
Tristan. Is he
Mhm.
gonna play an instrument? Are you gonna go play that tuba?
Hey, look, no, I'm not gonna do all that. He is a couple of my really good friends, especially like my one best friend, my brother Mike. He plays trumpet. I don't know. My son is taking a liking to that trumpet, and I've tried to put the trombone in his head. Either I'm practicing while he's awake, or I'll put it on
Yeah,
YouTube and he'll watch some
yeah,
trombone with me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. I'm happy to cultivate whatever interest that he's interested in.
There you go. There
So
you go.
yeah.
Yeah. Now you sound like a politician.
Hey, look. I
Or
mean,
a parent.
to be honest, sometimes like yeah, you can do an instrument for fun, but I kind of want him to play the spreadsheet. You know, go be an engineer or an accountant or something.
Yeah, right,
Um,
right,
but
right.
no, that's what I mean though, right? Like music is
Yeah,
super accessible to everybody. I
that's
mean,
right,
we just did a joint concert with a community band, and
right,
those were some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
right.
And they were just happy to be there with their instruments. And I was like, man,
That's
this
it.
is it was different.
That's it,
The
man.
vibe is different. Yep.
That the competition is gone. You don't have to prove anything.
Nope.
You're just there to play.
You're playing. That's it.
That's all. That's it.
And I
See you at
love
the
it.
bottom. Yeah.
Yep. And I
I
love it.
want to thank you so much for taking the time. I totally enjoyed it, man. It was great.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. And we want to thank the audience for coming in and listening and taking time. You'll be able to find this podcast at any of your podcast venues. And you know what? Go out and play all the right notes. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Podium. If you would like to be a guest on The Podium, email the show at onthepodium2@gmail.com. That's ONTHEPODIUMTOO @gmail.com.